I've been a project manager for the last 8+ years. I've worked across multiple different industries and I've traveled all across South America, making hundreds of thousands of dollars as a project manager. I'm also the creator and founder of the Yeti system, which currently has over 1,000 members, all looking to become six-figure project managers. I'm going to be breaking down 8 years of brutal career advice, truths, and lessons in this one video, so listen up. So lesson number one, you make way more money as a contractor versus as a full-time employee. So if you're working as a project manager right now, but you're working full-time, I promise you, if you get incorporated, you will instantly make 25 to 30% more money. When I was getting started in project management, my first role, I was working as a project coordinator, making just about $27 an hour, but I was lucky enough early on to have a mentor who showed me that by working the same job, but as an incorporated contractor, I could make way more money. And so that same week, I opened up a corporation, I filled out the paperwork, and by the end of the month, I was able to switch over to working as a project coordinator on contract, and I was making $42 an hour. Now that was a 55% increase in my hourly rate for the same job. Now I want to be clear, there are some more risks that you take on when you work contracts versus working full-time. So when you're working contracts, you don't get any benefits or vacation, you don't get any bonuses, you don't get any job security. But in my experience, for me, making a lot more money up front was way more valuable than getting a couple of weeks of vacation or getting benefits like dental or massage therapy. And one of the things I've learned about job security is that you don't really have job security even as a full-time employee. You can still be laid off or fired, and yes, it might be a bit more difficult for the company to let you go because they got to go through some more legal and compliance procedures, but you can still get fired as a full-time employee. So the only real job security you have is by constantly increasing your value in the marketplace, learning new skills, learning new tools, increasing your knowledge, and that is what will give you the edge, and that is what will give you job security. And when you're working contracts, you know your contract is going to expire. You know you have 6 months or 1 year on your contract, and you know that at the end you're either going to get renewed or that it's time to find a new job or a new contract. And so what that does for you when you're working contracts, it actually shifts your mindset into always staying sharp, always learning and growing. And this is the type of person that companies want to hire. So I've actually found that by working contracts, I've actually increased my job security because I've continuously invested in my own personal development, in my own growth, and in learning new skills that keep me relevant and desirable in the marketplace. Full-time jobs, on the other hand, make you complacent. You feel like you've got a job, and if you just keep doing that bare minimum, you won't get fired. And so you get comfortable and you have no catalyst or motivation that keeps you hungry and that keeps you motivated. Now, one more key point to really drive this home, that contracting versus working full-time as an employee is so much more lucrative, because if you do a really good job on contract, you can actually demand way more money on your renewal. It's not even funny. As a full-timer, you might get lucky if you get a 3 to 5% raise, but as a contractor, it's actually not uncommon to get increases of 15, 20, 30, even 40% on your annual or 6-month contract renewal. Now, of course, that is if you're able to demonstrate value, if you're able to demonstrate that you are someone who's exceptional at the job, who's someone who's continuously learning and growing and continuously adding value to the organization. Lesson number 2, project management is not a technical discipline. It is a people-focused discipline. If I had $1 for every time someone came to me asking me if I teach Jira, if I teach Confluence or MS Project, I would be a very rich man. And unfortunately, it's the people who've never really worked as project managers who ask this question: what are the technical tools that I need to know so that I can become a project manager? I don't know how to code. Can I still become a project manager? And what they fail to realize is that project management is first and foremost a people-focused discipline. You're not being hired to click around in Jira or to input data in MS Project. You are also not being hired to be the technical lead on the project or to write code. And that's why you have developers and engineers and subject matter experts on your project that do those tasks and those activities. You are being hired to lead and to influence and to organize and to communicate and to negotiate and to solve problems. 80% of your job as a project manager will involve some sort of communication. Giving status updates, making sure different stakeholders are aligned and informed, escalating issues to leadership and de-escalating interpersonal conflicts, building relationships with different teams. These are your roles and responsibilities as a project manager. All the technical details like which software you use when you're building your schedule or which tool you use when you track your project, these can all be learned on the job. And so the number one reason that beginners fail is because they think that they need to know every tool and every methodology. But if they just focused on improving their skills in communication and in problem solving and how to ask good questions and all the soft skills that really make you stand out as a project manager, they would become project managers so much faster. Just think about it from the recruiter's perspective or the hiring manager's perspective. When they're hiring for a project manager, they're not looking for someone to write code. They're not looking for someone to build architectural diagrams. They're not looking for someone to test or debug applications. They know that for each of these activities, they have a dedicated subject matter expert, someone from QA or a solutions architect or a software engineer that is going to do those activities. So when they're hiring for a project manager, they're thinking much more broadly. Is this someone that can come in and work and get along with the teams and individuals that are already here? Is this someone that can organize the work? Is this someone that can bring clarity? Is this someone that can work with the leadership teams that are here? Is this someone that is presentable and that won't embarrass us in front of our team meetings? Does this person bring the right mindset and the right attitude? These are the things that the hiring manager is thinking about when it comes to a project manager role. Now, in contrast, a hiring manager for a software engineer will not care as much if the person is not very organized, will not care as much if the person maybe is not someone that they would present to leadership, but as long as they are really strong technically and can write great software and great code, the hiring manager will likely hire them. And so project management is not technical. Put a much greater emphasis on your soft skills, on your people skills, and I promise you it will take you much farther. Lesson number 3, PMP and certificates do not make you a better project manager. This one is really going to hurt some of you guys, but it has to be said. You having a PMP certificate does not make you a better project manager. It doesn't even make you a project manager, period. I've worked as a project manager in IT for 8+ years, and not just in one company, not just in one project, but across 5 different companies, across 4 different industries, and on more than 10 different projects, all ranging from hundreds of thousands of dollars in budget to over $40 million in budget. And do you want to know exactly the amount of times that I've had to calculate earned value management or do a Monte Carlo simulation? Exactly 0. So the amount of practical real world application the PMBOK has or the PMP certificate has is unfortunately very little. And all the complex calculations like schedule or cost are handled by software like MS Project or MS Excel anyways, and so you memorizing a formula is not going to make you a better project manager. I can just Google the formula or have the pre-built functions inside of MS Project and Excel do the calculations for me. So if you're thinking, I'm going to study for my PMP and then I'm going to write my exam and then I'm going to have the PMP certificate and I'll be a project manager, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. I know many PMP certified people who are dead broke, can't find a job, and have no idea how to communicate, and they have no idea how to solve real problems. They've never done or built a project of their own in their life, and they have no true experience in life. But yes, they have a silly piece of paper that showed them that they've passed an exam, and the market is full of people who are certified but have no practical skills. So if you want to beat out all of them, don't waste your time on trying to get a certificate. Invest your time in building the real skills and doing the actual work of project managers so that when your time comes, you'll be ready to take on high-paying 6-figure project manager roles. The truth is, a PMP or a certificate in general will just show you that you've been able to pass an exam. Meanwhile, if you can show experience, it means that you've actually done things that project managers do. So I want to ask you guys something right now. Would you yourself hire someone that holds a PMP with 0 experience, or would you hire someone that has ton of experience but no PMP? I think the answer is pretty clear. You'd probably want to hire the person who's got a ton of experience because it shows that they've done the job. It doesn't really matter if they have a piece of paper or not. Lesson number 4, you don't need to have expert domain knowledge in order to become a successful project manager. One of the beautiful things about project management is that you can work in any industry or a domain as long as you have a high level, basic understanding of the subject matter in that area. In other words, you do not need to be an expert. When I was getting started on my project management journey, one of my first projects was rolling out IT hardware and infrastructure to set up online ordering and fulfillment from inside brick and mortar retail stores. And I had this feeling that, oh man, I don't know jack about IT or hardware or setting up new tech and new infrastructure inside retail stores. How am I going to do this? But when I actually started the work, I quickly realized that my success in the role wasn't going to come from knowing all the technical details about the hardware and the infrastructure that I was deploying. It was going to come from understanding how to manage timelines and risks and dependencies and people, and how to communicate with vendors and internal teams and stakeholders, and how to organize the work and problem solve on the job and make sure that things got done. Now, that being said, I do believe that you should have an interest in the subject matter that you'll be working on, or at least have some basic knowledge or be willing to learn some basic level things about the subject matter that you're dealing with. If you don't, is going to make your job very hard. Here's a quick example. If you're working on a construction project, but you have no interest or even basic knowledge in the different types of materials that are used in construction, or the different types of drywall, or the different types of roofing options that you have, you can still probably do the job, but you won't be able to add much value or ask the right questions during meetings. And over time, the teams you work with will begin to lose respect for you because they'll see you as someone who just takes notes and doesn't really have their own ideas or opinions about the work that's being done. So the real skill for you as a project manager is to be a very fast learner. If you're given a project in an area or an industry that you don't know much about, spend some time on the job talking to as many people as you can about the thing that you're working on, read up about it online, and just try to get comfortable with the subject matter at a high level. And I promise that it will make managing your projects so much easier. Lesson number 5, executing on your own projects makes you a 10 times better project manager. This lesson is probably one of the most underrated and underutilized strategies for becoming a top 6-figure project manager. And the truth is, you will be a much better project manager if you've planned and executed on your own personal projects at home. Before I even became a project manager, or before I even thought about becoming a project manager, I was managing and planning and executing on my own projects, and I had no idea that this would serve me later in my role as a project manager. In university, I had a crazy idea about making an application that would display real-time information of what was going on anywhere in the world just by scrolling around on a map. And then I had a crazy idea about a real-time sports app where you could win prizes for guessing what would happen in the game. Then I had another crazy idea to create a food blog and then a photo blog. And the thing is, I didn't just stop at the idea. I actually worked to try to make it happen. I organized all the activity that needed to happen first, that needed to happen second. I even put aside a small little budget so I could invest into tools and resources that I needed to make this idea come to life. And not only did I plan and manage the project, but I actually myself executed on building the applications, building the websites, and working through all the problems that came up and all the challenges that came up throughout that process. And so I want to remind you that I did all this before I even had considered a career in project management. But it just turned out that all that experience I gained from trying to create and execute on my own projects at home were the exact type of experience that companies were looking for, someone who could take an idea and bring it to reality. And so if there's one brutally honest truth here that you can take away, it is that reading and learning from textbooks will only take you so far. If you truly want to level up and start landing the PM roles and actually have the skills and confidence to do these roles, you need to start doing things and not just memorizing from a textbook. Lesson number 6, project management can look vastly different across different industries and different companies, but the fundamental skills never change. I've worked in banking, I've worked in retail, I've worked in manufacturing, I've worked in telecom. And when I was in retail, I was managing large-scale rollouts of infrastructure across new stores. When I was in banking, I was managing the deployment of new computers across all their branches. And when I was in manufacturing, I was managing the upgrade of software and hardware for highly technical equipment used in their manufacturing process. And even though the industries and products have been vastly different and the type of work has been very different from company to company, the core PM skills like communication, like planning, like risk management, issue escalation, and keeping everyone aligned are universal. And so all you have to do is master these skills, and you can walk into any company and be a killer project manager. In other words, your job is to master the project management thinking. How do project managers approach the work? What lens do they view the world from? What type of questions do they ask? Once you learn how to act and think like a project manager, you become virtually unstoppable. And so there you go. Those are some of the brutally honest lessons that I've learned in my 8+ year career as an IT project manager, working across multiple different industries and multiple different companies. If you're interested to finally level up and become a project manager and gain the practical hands-on experience that's needed to succeed and gain the confidence that's needed to succeed as a project manager, I invite you to join my community of over 1,000+ aspiring project managers. And if nothing else, like and subscribe to this video, and I'll see you on the next one.